Hey everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Sam Shaw and I'm the founder of Wall Street Mastermind. This is Wall Street Mastermind's Elevate program, where we take our flagship coaching program and give it away for free to high potential students who are currently in a difficult financial situation. The goal of this show is to first and foremost give these students the coaching and guidance that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise and help them break into investment banking. Of course, we also want to give all of you an in-depth look at how to go about your own investment banking preparation process the right way, so that you can model it after the same proven methodology and strategies that we've used to place over 90% of our students into investment banking across every single bulge bracket and elite boutique bank over the last several years. With hundreds of thousands of applicants competing to break into investment banking globally each year, our team only has the bandwidth to help a very small percentage of you. So my hope is that this show helps all of you, even if you aren't able to directly participate in our program and work with us. So let's get to it. In this final session with Ximena, she reveals that she has received 2 more offers since we last spoke, from UBS and Citi, respectively. We celebrate her huge wins and also look back on her entire recruiting journey and discuss what went well as what she felt she could have done better in hindsight. This is definitely an episode worth checking out, as Ximena shares a lot of insight that you will be able to benefit from in your own recruiting process. Hey, Ximena.
Hey, Sam.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Looks like this is our last session.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know. I was looking back on it, and it was like, oh, it's been kind of like 6 months since we started doing this, but
Yeah.
I feel like the time went by pretty quickly. But anyway, I just wanted to do one last call with you, kind of wrap things up. And I usually interview my clients like when they're done with recruiting, and so I figured I would do that with you as well. But I guess before we even go there, just since nobody knows what we're talking about,
Right.
you're done with summer 2023 recruiting. You got 2 offers, I think, right?
So I got 3 in total. So I got RBC, UBS, and Citi in the
Yeah,
end.
you got UBS. Okay, see, like that happened probably after we last talked, and I didn't even know that. So, okay, so you got 3 offers, which is amazing. And have you decided which one you're going to take?
Yeah, so I chose Citi. I love the people that I network with there. That's when networking really came into play a lot.
Yeah,
But yeah, I chose Citi.
that's awesome. You kind of already answered this, but I was gonna ask, like, how did you choose between those banks? But it sounds like it kind of just came down to the people mostly, or were they
Yeah,
considered?
it's funny because no, I think definitely, well, I was thinking, of course, kind of opportunities. I think all the banks provide a great future ahead and provide a lot of learning. But
Yeah,
I think in terms of deal flow and kind of the people that I felt like I was talking to, Citi just seemed kind of the strongest bank to go with.
yeah,
At least for now, I know they're going through a lot of changes, but it seemed like a really great opportunity.
yeah, absolutely. When you say all the changes, what are you referring to?
I think just the transition that they're still going through with having a new CEO and everything in that sorts. I think they're moving around a little. I know that they're doing some changes in terms of their groups and moving things around. So I know that they're going through that, but they're still so strong. I think my interview overall as well, I felt like the interview was the strongest with Citi. I felt a little bit more technically challenged, and I really liked that. I felt like starting out, that's something that I really want. So that also moved me to choosing them.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. That's awesome. Well, huge congrats. Obviously, Citi's a great firm. World Bracket Bank, one of the biggest banks globally. And so, yeah, I think that's a great outcome. The other 2 banks are great as well, but I mean, between these 3 banks, I probably would have made the same choice. So I agree with the decision. But I guess if we reflect back on kind of like the last 6 months, I don't know, like any thoughts on the recruiting process and kind of like where you started to like where you are now? Was this like kind of what you expected, or I don't know what your expectations are, to be honest, but Like if you just, you've probably already done this, like thinking back on this whole journey, there's been a lot of ups and downs, right? And there are like so many times along the way where you probably felt, dejected or oh my God, like always getting so close and then not quite there. Because you had a couple of really close calls, right? So talk to us a little bit about kind of like your whole journey and kind of how you're feeling now about everything.
Yeah, I think what I would say is the biggest surprise of everything was not only kind of getting an offer at the end and how everything went, but I think honestly, it was kind of the whole journey and the growth process of it, not having ever networked with anybody and not understanding the concept to making my first call. Like I really remember my first call. It was so bad. I was just kind of, going down bullet points. I wasn't understanding the concept of it. And really just starting out, really kind of, I think, being afraid of the process for some reason. I know everybody goes through it differently, has different support systems, but I think, yeah, just the confidence building, the growth, being able to speak to professionals, and then eventually just actually having really interesting conversations and knowing what you want to get out of them.
Yeah.
I guess that's what everyone says. It's just interesting to go back and like reflecting back on it. It is what everyone says. It is about the people and the importance of networking and actually getting to know banks. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, were you like, were you doing anything prior to working Wall Street Marathon? Like, were you already doing stuff on your own? Like, were you already trying to prep or learn how to answer interview questions, or I don't know, like, what were some of the things you were doing, if any, or maybe you weren't doing anything and this was kind of like your first attempt at it?
Yeah. So I was like in a state, well, it was through the pandemic and everything, and I was mostly at home, of course, doing remote learning. And I had started this course that was called Intro to Investment Banking, but I had no idea what it was. It was just kind of me trying to teach myself finance concepts. And I was just going through, I remember I was talking when I did the first call, I was in the middle of some like capital markets course, and I was just really liking everything I was learning. But I think everything was just kind of, I was learning things and knew it was interesting, but I didn't really understand what I was learning.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think I saw one of your ads, and I think I was just at a point where I had so much free time outside of just remote classes, where I
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of go into a different process or look for new career opportunities. And then your video seemed really motivating. I wasn't completely sure what investment banking was, but I knew I was liking the course that I was taking. So that's kind of what opened that up. But
Yeah.
I could basically kind of say I started at zero when I first joined Wall Street Mastermind.
Got it. So you had like just become interested in this career path and you're like taking some free online courses here and there, but like for the most part, it never networked. You never had an interview. It's like didn't really feel like you knew how to do anything basically. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I mean, obviously, like people have gotten to follow along on like this journey of yours, right? And thank you for agreeing to let people follow along. So typically I ask our clients to talk about kind of like what you feel like is the difference between what you did inside of Wall Street Mastermind versus what you could have done on your own, right? I think in this instance, people have kind of already seen what you were doing inside of Wall Street Mastermind in a way. I mean, at least like they get to see our calls. They don't get to see the stuff like behind the scenes, but can you still maybe talk a little bit about now in hindsight, if you go back and think about, because, obviously you didn't try to do that much on your own prior, but if you had gone through this process on your own, knowing what you know now, like, what do you think would be the biggest difference?
No, I think I struggled a lot with kind of getting started. I knew I had access to a lot of the content, but I think I lacked a lot of confidence at the beginning. Like I said, I just really didn't understand the point of networking, which from my talks, it's important to know that a lot of people go through that. A lot of people have trouble starting to network. It's not something like you're the only person that's not able to network.
Right.
A lot of people have trouble having that first few calls and really understanding what you're getting out of it. But I really think I took about like, I don't know, 3 months, I think, to do my first networking call, just because I didn't really know what I was getting into. I wanted to have confidence and have a good conversation. And like I said, even my first networking call, I think my voice was super shaky. I lacked confidence. I'm really lucky that that director was super, super nice about it. I actually emailed him when I had my interview with Morgan Stanley because he worked there and he was really motivating throughout that process.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it was definitely confidence. I remember when I first joined, I when I was going through the sessions, people were I was asking like, what can I do? Because I was starting my second semester as a freshman, and a lot of people told me, oh, you're really ahead of the game. Like, don't worry about it, but definitely like try to uh, use that to your advantage. I feel like, well, the first thing I did, I know I sent my resume in like within like 2 days to get corrected and get everything done with that. I knew the internship I landed was like within a week, just because I really wanted to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I said, networking and going through the rest of the modules, I wish I would have sped that up a little bit more. I think they just would have enhanced my conversations in terms of networking a lot earlier on. Yeah, so I think just having taken more advantage of where I was in the process, I knew I was early on, but I was also very, very lost. I also wish I would have taken more advantage of like the sophomore internships,
Mm.
just because I do remember freaking out with like seeing all these applications opening for sophomore internships, which I can say are just so much more behavioral than technical, but I mostly didn't apply because I wasn't good with my technicals at the time,
Mm.
and behave and sophomore internships are really barely technical. You really need to know basics. I just wasn't sure what that would be like.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's where,
This was before you and I started meeting regularly, basically. It was just like
yeah,
freshman year still. Okay, got it. Right.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because
basically.
we didn't really start, I guess we didn't really start meeting regularly until what? It was like 6 months because it was like almost the end of your first semester sophomore year, right? Or it was like
Yeah.
halfway through your first semester
Hmm.
sophomore year was when we started kind of like doing this kind of these sessions for people to kind of observe, right? Okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, like we definitely missed some stuff in the beginning. You were also abroad then at the time, right? Or were you already back?
Yeah. I had just gone back. That's what I said, where I was just kind of, I really wanted to take advantage of my time.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
got it. Okay. Okay. Well, so freshman year, I mean, it sounds like some of the lack of confidence and stuff kind of held you back. And maybe like
Definitely.
in hindsight, you would have done a lot of these things earlier or just put yourself out there earlier and not maybe be so hesitant with the networking. I guess is probably what, like, once you got to sophomore year was when you really started to get things off the ground and started to actually like push things forward and start to make progress, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So how were you able to kind of like turn it around, I guess, or how were you able to finally, get some momentum, so to speak?
Yeah, I can say something that I wish I would have definitely done earlier that made me get the momentum at the end was when I just started applying. Just because near after we began this, first of all, I think not messaging you at the beginning and kind of getting more help from the program, I feel like there might be a misconception of how much help you actually get, but it's so much easier to just message you when you have a question. I felt like so many times I would be embarrassed to ask you a question or anything like that, which obviously at this point I kind of asked you anything. Some days I would like text you every single day or ask you the smallest things, which is, it's really what you do. You really help people to understand things. And especially I think us, we freak out a lot of times when we have a bad conversation, we don't know how something went.
Right.
That's kind of what you're there for. And I feel like I didn't understand that concept when I first joined the program. It just kind of felt like I have to do this on my own, but you're really there to support
Yeah.
and to be that kind of comfort and support you through that. So I think definitely when we started doing this and we started having sessions, I don't know if you noticed, but I started messaging you a lot more on Slack than I had when I first joined. And
Right.
I think just this helped me understand that concept. But that goes to, I think, everyone in your program. That
Yeah.
is kind of what you do, and you really help people in
Yeah.
that sense. So that definitely gave me a lot more comfort. And then the other thing was just starting to apply. Like I said, I didn't apply for any sophomore internships just because I didn't know what the experience would be like, and you have nothing to lose. If you do an interview, you at least get a grasp of what that's going to be like. I was too afraid to just get rejected, so I refused to apply for like any sophomore internships until the end of my sophomore semester, and I was lucky to get those three of JP and Deutsche and Goldman. But had I applied sooner, I would have probably been more prepared for the JP Morgan interview and for the other interviews. Those were like my first ones, and having done more mock interviews, I
Yeah.
think even just actual interviews, that would have prepared me a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a good call out for people who are watching this and maybe they're underclassmen, especially if you qualify for diversity, then some of these sophomore summer internships, some firms start recruiting sophomore year, like early part of sophomore year, but some firms start recruiting like late freshman year, right? And so the sooner you can start and the sooner you can kind of get yourself to the place where you're ready to apply for these things, the more opportunities you're going to have, right? And so it sounds like maybe you missed out on some of the firms that went earlier, but you were able to, once you actually started applying, you were actually able to get a good amount of interviews for the sophomore summer internships, right? But obviously, if we had even more at bats, then who knows what we could have gotten, right? Because some opportunities just didn't even go for. Okay, that makes sense. And so I guess, yeah, and then the other point that you brought up is like kind of in the beginning being maybe a bit too reserved or too shy to ask as many questions as you should have. I probably should have done a better job explaining that, you can ask me as many questions as you want, but I guess like it's interesting because I find out because we've worked with like 500 plus, almost 600 students at this point, and obviously, like when you work with that many people, everyone has like a different personality. Like I have students that come in and just from day one, and they're like messaging me every day, daily, and they don't care how many questions they ask you at all. And I have people that come into the program and never ask me a single thing, and then I have like everybody in between, right? So it's just like there's that saying, how does it go? It's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease or something like that, right? It's like you have to like kind of speak up in order to like get what you want and get what you need. And like sometimes if you don't, people won't really know what you need help with, right? But I'm glad we fixed that. And towards the end, yeah, like you definitely were asking. I think you were asking me questions anytime you had them, which is exactly what we want to see. So like what would you say, like for people that haven't gone through this process, and maybe because like not everyone goes to Wall Street Mastermind, right? Like, and I'm not even saying that like you don't have to go through Wall Street Mastermind. Like there are plenty of people that, well, I don't want to say plenty. There are people that get into investment banking without using Wall Street Mastermind, right? In an absolute sense, there are plenty of people that do that. Percentage wise, probably not a lot, but regardless, most people, I think when they're kind of deciding like whether to work with us or not, they have this in their mind, the decisions between like, hey, should I just kind of do this on my own with all the resources that I already have? Kind of like what you said earlier, which is prior to coming in, you felt like you had access to a lot of the resources already too, right? Because you go to like a school where a lot of people want to go into banking, and there's probably upperclassmen, there's free resources, there's a lot of stuff that you could have used. But so the decision between like doing that versus like having a coach and being able to ask some questions anytime you have questions, like how big of a difference is it really though? Like, is it really that big of a deal? Because like, because people always point to like, well, I know my friend, they just got in without any help. So like, I should be able to do it too. Right. Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things go through my head. Major things. I think I've gotten the same question as well from before, and I have had people that have asked me about your program and what I think of it. It's really about, everyone has a different position that they're in. Some people know about investment banking. I don't know for how long. So it really depends on the support that you want. I think I mean, getting into the program isn't getting a job, it's just preparation, right? Like joining the program is just you're giving lessons and more resources in terms of how you can network, but
Yeah.
it really is all up to you. And everything that you do with it. Like I said, like I didn't message you on Slack for a really long time. And I mean, that was just like I was just losing time. There was nothing that I was getting out of not messaging you.
Yeah.
I was just, time was just passing. So I think for a lot of people, like I said, like college is so expensive in itself, especially in the US with student loans and everything and all around. And at the end of the day, it's really important to have an education. That's the most important thing. But if you graduate and you don't really know what you want to do or where you're going to start, you're going to spend those first few years, I think, more lost just because I think universities still need to work on career development and helping you understand what you want to do and opportunities that there are.
Yeah.
IB is just kind of like it's like the other extreme where like you just have to be prepared really early on. Career
Right.
development in college is like near the end. So I think being a part of this program helps you to prep for that. It helps you to at least explore an interest, which is what um, college is pretty much about. But
Yeah.
also, like it's not that you're secured a job 100% because of course if you don't use the tools you're not going to land interviews and you're not going to get a job, but it's just an investment. Like some people think that the program is worth a lot and everything, but you're really investing in your future like a lot of people say. And you just not only investing in your future in terms of getting a job, but it's just the network that you get and also just the community in Wall Street Mastermind, being able to message other people that are in the same process, that are having interviews, that are coming, being able to build that community is so important. And
Yeah.
um even now like I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to at other universities haven't really understood the concept of networking, which I can totally relate to. But even like you can network within Wall Street Mastermind and see what people are doing, kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't know what questions to ask, so you can come to office hours and hear what other people are going through. That's unless like you're in a that small niche of people in your school that are doing that, that's really hard to find. That you can really, I mean, even just coming to office hours is the most basic thing you can do and hear other people's experiences, and that can really help you going. So it's such an investment in yourself, and it's really about being around people that are doing similar things.
Yeah.
um it's just that's always going to be encouraging. And then of course, like I said, networking, even now, a lot of the people I now work with at other banks, I've messaged them like, hey, I got a job at so and so, this is who I signed with, and they're happy to have a coffee in New York when I come there next summer. It doesn't even have to be that bank, but I think the importance of understanding what building that network is about is something that I think, I mean, colleges, from what my understanding, don't teach a lot. And it's again, it's not, you're not asking for a job, you're just building like a support system and getting to know the industry, um, which is important to note and I guess learn about.
I think that's a good point. Uh, I feel like people spend so much money on college. There really needs to be almost like a formalized course in college or something that's just on like professional development and how to get jobs, like real world
Right.
life skills, including stuff like, a lot of stuff that we do in this program, right? Like resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, how to network, like how to interview, like, and unfortunately, they don't really teach this stuff in school. And you have a career center, but I think like most career services, at least what our students tell us, because we've worked with students from over 100 different schools, they're pretty limited in terms of what they can do, right? Like one, they have to help so many students. There's like, I don't know how many career counselors on campus helping thousands or tens of thousands of students. And then second of all, not everyone on campus wants to do investment banking. And so they're not like specialists in how to get into investment banking. They have to kind of be, I guess you can call them a jack of all trades, which is just like more like general purpose recruiting almost, right? But I think as we all know, like investment banking recruiting, the degree of difficulty and the level of competitiveness and just how selective it is, like it's just so much harder than your regular 9 to 5 job, right? And so like I think that's where we really I always tell people like you can almost think of Wall Street Mastermind as just like you're taking an extra class at school, and this is like if you sign up for a summer school class and you pay for summer school, like you're taking an extra class, and the class is just going to teach you everything that you need to get the job. But it's not just like a class where that you self-study, it's a class where you can actually interact with your professors, with your other classmates, with TAs, with like it's literally almost like and there's assignments that you have to complete and get feedback on. Like it's almost exactly how you would learn anything else, right? And unfortunately, like most schools don't offer stuff like this, and then so we're kind of plugging that hole. And when most people are already spending multiple six figures on college, it's like it's almost like you're paying for your education, but you're missing one of the most important pieces that are going to help you actually get an ROI on your tuition, basically, right? And so, so I think that's a really I think that's a really appropriate analogy, I guess, that you brought up. I think like also it's interesting that like in the beginning when you weren't really because you talked about how like getting into the program is still kind of what you make of it, right? Like it's not like you get into this program, the job's just gonna be handed to you. So like in the beginning when you weren't really asking any questions and weren't really asking for help, that kind of is just it's kind of like as if you weren't even in the program, right?
Yeah.
because
No, 100%.
because you aren't really using the program. And then so it was almost like the progress, like going back to the original question, like, hey, what's the difference between if you were to just do this on your own versus if you had this program? Ironically, I think like your first few months in the program was kind of like the results you would have gotten if you didn't have this program because you weren't really leveraging it, right? And then like
Yeah.
one sophomore year came around and you actually started asking questions regularly and we started meeting and whatever, then that was when you started to kind of like make a lot of progress, right? I don't know. At least that's kind of like how I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah. I think what I really got out of it when I first joined was the resume. And well, my focus was building up my resume just because I just had really other things. So it was getting those 2 internships when I first joined, basically. And then since I did that, I was like, okay, well, I'm still learning about these things, and I don't want to kind of just go into an interview and not know what to talk about. So I
Yeah.
think I focused my first time, but I completely kind of moved away from Wall Street Mastermind just because I was so focused on just kind of getting those internships out of the way in order to learn and have something to talk about. But you can do things simultaneously, which is the important thing. And I think at that moment, I wasn't thinking that. I was just like, let me get this out of the way. Then in a few months, I'll do this. And it's important to do everything kind of simultaneously. Yeah, I wish I would have.
That makes sense
Yeah.
though, because that does happen. Because again, when you join, you were a freshman, so there wasn't like as much of a rush, I guess, to like cram everything into like a short amount of time, right? I find that like students that join our program as sophomores, they a lot of times they don't have a choice but to like build their resume and network and do the interview prep all at the same time because like applications are starting so soon. But it actually makes sense because in the beginning, I remember now in the beginning, like when you came in, you didn't really have any relevant experience on your resume, right? So we were kind of like building it from scratch. And so the first few months you focus on, I mean, we helped you find the internship. You were doing the internship. And then like once you got that out of the way, then your sophomore year was kind of like when you started networking and stuff, which actually makes sense in hindsight because networking freshman year, well, if it's a for a sophomore summer internship, I think that's fine. But networking freshman year for a junior summer internship is probably a bit too early, right? People are gonna like at that point, people are still recruiting. They're still recruiting the year above you, and so they're probably gonna
Right.
not really want to talk to you anyway, right? So
Yeah.
I guess think about it that way. Like it makes sense the way you did it. Like I think you had the luxury of starting as a freshman, which allows you to kind of like take things one step at a time, which is actually like that's the best way to do it. That's why we always tell people you want to try to start as early as possible. Not that you can't start
Right.
later, but like if you start later, there'll just be a lot more work and a lot less time, right?
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I mean, those are really good points. And then like, your last point about the community, I think that's a great point too. I know Mohammed actually messaged me earlier today and said that he has an interview coming up with RBC, and he mentioned that you were helping him out with it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Because, um, but that's kind of like that's kind of what people just do in our program, right? It's like you already went through the process, you got an interview, or so you got an offer with RBC, and then now like someone else has an interview with RBC, and then they can just kind of connect with you, or whoever else has already interviewed there, and then like you guys are all like very willing to, at least I find people are always very willing to help each other out inside the program, and it's not this like cutthroat thing of, oh, I mean, you already got the offer, so there's no reason to be cutthroat. But like I find that even prior to getting the offers, people are still very collaborative and always sharing information, sharing interview questions, sharing just like whatever they think is going to help each other out. And that's like, I don't know, for me at least, that's a beautiful thing to see, because I want to see everybody winning together, right? And not just like, I feel like we're recruiting a lot of times because there's so few jobs that a lot of people kind of hold everything really close to their vest, and like they don't want to share anything with each other, because if you get a job, then that's one less job for me, right? Like, and I don't know if you experienced that at school too, right? Like, but that's something that I find is like really, really unique inside of our program. So I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I have to say that's I think one of the best parts of it. Like I said, just having a community. But I mean, you even have, I think I would, the Slack channel is more, I would name it, I would say it's like a group chat. Like it's not even that formal. Like we have different channels where like, some people will like put in a joke. Like it's not so formal,
Yeah.
like we're all helping each other out, but in like a fun way and in a grinding way. And like we're all there to support each other. But like you even have people that already graduated or already got an offer from like years back. And like sometimes you'll see them drop a comment or say like, hey guys, our bank is doing so and so, like that can only happen if people really enjoyed and saw and the community that it was built out from Wall Street Mastermind, or else people would just kind of delete and move on. And you still see people like come back and make comments and try to help people, which is, I think, speaks a lot to the program, what you give, but also just the support that's built. And yeah, I definitely had a few people message me about being helped in anything. And I think it's just a natural thing where like we're all in this together. You don't feel this like decisiveness. Even like there's like when we were going to some boutiques, which take even fewer people, like we were all super collaborative and helping each other interview prep and everything. It didn't feel like, it was more like, let's get these offers together rather than like, oh, it's one less for me. Which, yeah, I really felt like in a way, this program was kind of a safe zone where like I could tell people what I was going through and the issues I was having rather than feeling judged, just because everyone's going through the same thing. Which is, I think, really important about this whole process, especially when you have your ups and downs, definitely. And just making sure you're in it. I think some people in office hours, somebody said that like things weren't going well and they stopped doing anything for a few months. And like the least thing you can do is kind of come to office hours and anything, but they really regretted it just because they kind of gave themselves a stop, which is part of the process. Sometimes you just don't know what way you're coming, but there's always a way to be engaged, even if you don't want to be messaging somebody or you're taking a break off of something, you can still come to office hours and still like, hear what people are doing.
Yeah.
There's just always a way to be involved.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think if I were to really sum it up, like there isn't really people in the program, I feel like don't have this scarcity mindset of like, oh, if you get a job, I'm not gonna get a job, right? And so there's plenty of jobs. Like if you do the work, there's plenty of jobs to go around, and most people in here are getting jobs anyway. And so I think that's also part of the reason why they're not really worried about it. But yeah, I think, and your point about the alumni, I think that's a really good point. I saw on Slack, like I think earlier today, like Michael was like, oh, has anyone interviewed with Jeffries? And then I think Alex came back, was like, oh, I'm currently an analyst at Jeffries, like
Yeah.
happy to help or whatever. And every time I see that, I just clicked a little heart. I'm like, yeah, I love it, right? Like it's great to see that these people that are already working full time and probably very busy, they're still coming back. We don't ask them to do this. I'm not paying them to do this. They just come back and they just do it, right? And that's
Yeah.
like, that's such an awesome thing to see. So I guess let me just ask you like one last question. So now that you're done with the process, and you're on the other side, I mean, you're gonna go from like being the person that's asking everyone for advice to now people are gonna come to you for advice, right? But what do you? Is there like one piece of advice, or it doesn't have to be one or two, whatever? Do you have any advice that you want to share with other younger people who are maybe going through the process now, or have yet to go through the process, but they're trying to, prepare for it? Like anything that you think really, really helped you as you were going through it yourself, or like maybe something that you learned in hindsight that you think like you wish you knew earlier, anything like that that you want to share with people?
Yeah, a lot, but I would say the main things would
The
probably be,
best ones.
yeah, yeah. Um, One, I think I already mentioned this, but just asking questions. If you don't know things, it's so basic in school. Sometimes people are scared to ask questions to their teachers. This is really the same thing. If you don't know what you're doing, just ask. I think, yeah, I just could have saved a lot of time. And I guess, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome. You just like feel like it's so competitive or you don't know what you're doing, or like you're just like, I remember just not thinking I was capable of doing it, which would like put me away. But I was like, I'm already in this, so let's just do it. But I've definitely talked with a few people that have said, like, this is just really hard. I'm from a non-target school. Like, I don't think I can do this. And especially like you have student interviews in your website where like you can see people from all backgrounds and every possible basically scenario, from high GPAs to low GPAs, from everything. So you can always find people's stories that are going to encourage you. So definitely ask questions if you don't think you're doing something the right way or anything. That's what the point of this program is. And if you don't do it, you're not going to get answers because you just don't know. That's the main thing. And then the other thing is just, yeah, actually kind of going through with everything that you're doing. So I remember I built like the networking log and just had it kind of sitting there for the longest time. But I
Mm,
just didn't want to take the first call. And I'm pretty sure if I'd taken that first call like months before, like I said, I just kind of went through the questions that you advised to ask. I would
yeah.
have had I'm pretty sure the same kind of conversation months before. And having just starting that earlier on would have probably given me a lot of more insightful conversations going forward and just understanding the point of networking. So I think ask more questions and get started as soon as you can, not just like going through the modules, but actually taking notes and like understanding everything that you're learning. I think, especially through like the technical module, I took, it didn't take a ton of time, but I really went through everything to try to understand the technicals, where like even sometimes my math was wrong or anything. That's something you can really fix, but understanding the concepts.
Yeah.
Like I was able to go through like the 400 M&A guide in a few days just because I understood the concepts. Maybe the math is something you can always like practice and do mental math within everything, but understanding how everything flows together was a really, really big help.
Yeah, those are really good points. I think your point about asking questions when you don't know what to do, and the fact that you had the networking log, but it kind of just sat there for a long time. I feel like those two kind of go hand in hand, right? Like there was something, probably my guess, like a mental block that was preventing you from actually going out and having that first conversation, maybe because you were scared to do it or whatever. Um, but if you had like asked for help with that, like then maybe you would have started networking a lot earlier, right? So I think like I like being able to, I mean, first of all, having someone you can go to ask for that help is important. But then like even if you have that, like actually utilizing the resource, I think is really important, right? And then I think like your other point about just getting inspiration from other people before you who are maybe similar to you and have done this before. I think that's a really, really powerful point because to your point, on our website, we like break out a lot of our client interviews into different categories, right? And the reason why we didn't used to do that, by the way, we actually like only did that a few months ago, but before, all of our client interviews was just like lumped together. And then we realized that, like, you know what, like what would actually be really helpful for people is they actually knew which interview was similar to their situation. Because I think one of the biggest things that prevents people from even recruiting for investment banking in the first place is that they've been told by so many people that, hey, if you are X, Y, or Z, then you have no shot at getting into investment banking. Right? I mean, how many of you have heard that before? Like, oh, you go to a non-target school, you have no shot at getting into. Oh, your GPA is, less than a 3.5, you have no shot at getting into investment banking. Or, oh, you, I don't know, don't have any connections on Wall Street, or, oh, you don't know how to build financial models, or whatever, right? Like, oh, you're an international student. And so, like, I don't know. I feel like, unfortunately, the world we live in, people are a lot of times telling you like why you can't do something or why you're not capable of doing something. And I don't even think a lot of times the people that are saying those things are being malicious about it. They're not like trying to lie to you or prevent you from being successful. I think that when most people say things like that, it's just their version of the truth. It's like their point of view on how the world works based on their experience, right? Maybe they have never met anyone around them that has gotten into banking from a non-target school or with a low GPA or with whatever your profile might be. And so they're telling the truth. It's just their version of the truth, right? And so I think you have to be like careful in terms of like who you believe in, who you get your kind of information diet from. And our purpose for breaking it out into all those categories is because we want people to know. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, everybody can get into investment banking. That's not true. Right? That's not the case. But also, like, the people that are capable of getting into investment banking, it's a much broader and larger subset of the population than most people make it out to be. Right? Like, that's why we use, like, we have non-target school students, we have low GPAs, internationals, people that graduated, like, people that have to overcome all sorts of things. We also have target school students and people who have really good grades and people who are super qualified. Like, but whatever you feel like you may be, we just want people to know that, like, look, hey, these other people have done it. So if they've done it, then, like, why can't you? Right? Like, that's the question you
Right.
ask yourself. Like, if they've done it, then why can't I do it? Like, what's the difference? Right? And a lot of times it just starts with having that belief. That's like your mentality and your mindset is like half the battle, right? Like, if you believe from the get-go that you're not cut out for this, or you're not qualified, or you have imposter syndrome or whatever, then, like, the chances of you being successful in this pursuit is going to be dramatically lower, right? Versus if you believe you can, then I think that everything else from there can be learned if you have the right mindset as the foundation. Right. That's my little rant.
No, it's true. I completely agree.
Yeah. So anyway, for our viewers that are watching this or listening to this on the podcast or whatever, like, if you guys are kind of in that situation where you're not sure if you can do this, or maybe you've been told that you can't do this, I wouldn't be so quick to jump to those conclusions. Like, reach out, like, talk to our team. There's no obligations whatsoever. You can book a free call with us. You can tell us more about your situation, and we'll give you our honest opinion, like, on, like, what is or isn't feasible, right? Because there's a lot of factors. Depends on, like, what you have going on paper already, like, school GPA, resume. Those are obviously all important factors, but also, like, where are you at in the recruiting timeline? How much time do you have left? Are you an international student or not? Like, there's just so many things. Like, it's impossible for us to sit here and tell you definitively what your chances are, right? But, like, we're happy to, give you a free assessment, assess your situation, hear you out. And then, like, if we think that you have a chance or you have a good chance, then we'll walk you through, like, what we think is going to take to do that. All right. Or even if we don't think you have a good chance, like, at a minimum, we can give you some advice on what we think we would do if we're in your shoes. Right. And if you want us to be a part of that process in terms of helping you along this journey, then, we are by application only, because we don't work with everybody. And then so you have to apply, but, like, or if you want to just, like, take our advice and go do everything on your own and implement on your own, like, that's totally fine too. Right. And so, if you guys want to do that, want to speak to our team, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, so it's www.wallstmastermind.com/apply. And we look forward to talking to you guys. All right. With that said, Ximena, this has been an honor to go through this entire journey with you and document it. And I really think that honestly, like seeing your journey is gonna help a lot of people. I think like even if they don't work with us, they got to benefit from I think a lot of the coaching that we did. But or if they do decide to work with us, then I think they'll obviously benefit even more. But I want to thank you for just like again allowing us to kind of document your journey, but more importantly, just want to congratulate you again because I saw firsthand, I had a front row seat to how hard you worked through everything and all the setbacks along the way. And, I bet like there are some people out there, like when we started recording this, it thought like, oh, they're just going to show only all the good stuff. And it's like, no, right? Like we showed everything, just like the real deal. It's like the good, the bad, the ugly. Like recruiting is not always smooth sailing the entire way. In fact, it almost never is. And regardless though, you stay resilient, you kept at it, you never gave up, ended up with 3 offers. And that's a testament to your work ethic and just your perseverance, I guess. So huge congrats again. And, can't wait to see all you accomplish at Citi. And obviously I'm sure, we'll stay in touch and you're part of the family. So that's pretty much it.
No, thank you so much, Sam. And it's been a really great journey. Like I said, both growing professionally and everything. I'm super, super grateful for, I guess, having run into that ad at that moment in time. It was just, it just changed everything and really gave me something to really work for and work towards. And I'm really grateful for everything. And thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This was fun. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up here. For those of you that have been following along this whole time, hopefully you enjoyed this and learned a lot from it. And, we'll probably do hopefully more of this in the future as well, but that's TBD. So until next time. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to our channel or podcast so that you can get notified of all of our future episodes as well. If you'd like to apply to work with us so that we can help you in a similar way, feel free to reach out to our team at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. Talk soon.